Welcome to the Performance and Accountability Board for March. This is the first of the new format, which will be held every month for half an hour. I'm Mark Shelford, the elected Avon and Somerset Police and Crime Commissioner. Can I first introduce to my right my Chief of Staff?
Hello, I'm Alice Ripley, the Commissioner's Chief of Staff.
And to my left, the Chief Constable.
Sarah Crew, Chief Constable, Avon and Somerset Police.
And the temporary Chief Officer responsible for people and organisation.
Good afternoon, Louise Hutchison, temporary Acting Chief Officer for People and OD.
I'm sorry, I got your title incorrect. During the meeting, I'll be putting questions both to the Chief Constable and to the temporary Acting Chief Officer responsible for people and organisation. This is one of the ways that I hold the Chief Constable to account in a transparent process. This meeting allows everybody to understand how Avon and Somerset are performing. So I'm now going to turn to my Chief of Staff to ask a follow-up question from the last meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. So before we move to today's agenda items, we wanted to follow up on a question that was asked at the end of the last meeting around misconduct. So could you please tell us, Chief Constable, how many of your serving officers have had findings of misconduct or gross misconduct against them?
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is I fully acknowledge the concerns that the public have around standards of professional behaviour. I share these concerns. Within Avon and Somerset, as we said last time, we've uplifted the resources within our professional standards department, and we are checking all our officers and staff against the Police National Database to look at any intelligence or information that we might not have been previously aware of, and I know that's been a concern for the public. But in direct response to your question, we have 26 officers who have had findings of misconduct or gross misconduct who are still serving. 17 of those 26 have a misconduct finding. I think it's important to say that dismissal is not an available sanction when it's misconduct. That leaves 9 officers who have a finding of gross misconduct, and in those cases those officers have received a final written warning, and those will normally be in place for a set period of up to 5 years. Of those, because I know this is where the public concern is, 2 officers have received gross misconduct findings for sexual harassment or conduct preliminary to sexual harassment, and 1 officer had a finding of discriminatory comments of a racial nature. Those cases relate to 2019 and 2020, and they were all heard by a gross misconduct panel chaired by a legally qualified chair. And it's important to say in the latter case, the discriminatory comments, that case was taken to judicial review by the then Chief Constable to explore and overturn that sanction. However, that wasn't allowed by the court. I think it's also right for me to say of those whole 26, 20, those final written warnings have expired. That means that the period of time has expired, but there have been no further instances of conduct or of a similar nature or of concern. Of those that are on a final written warning, I think it's right to reassure the public that there is close management and there is proactive management, both by line managers and the Professional Standards Department who...
Chief Constable, thank you. I'd just like to follow up. You said at the beginning in your introduction that you had checked the staff, I think both serving police officers but also police staff against the National Crime Computer. I would very much like to follow up any results we get from that. Can you give a sort of timescale of when that might be?
So at this time, we have supplied all the information required to the Police National Database. We anticipate in the coming weeks we will receive a quantity of data results back. We've then need to pull together a team, which we are doing now, to closely go through that data. It will be raw. We anticipate, because this is being done nationally, we will have completed that exercise towards the end of the summer. So at that point, we will identify if there are any additional concerns needing an investigation. Very happy to come back to a future meeting to give an update on that.
Okay, thank you. And can you just give me some assurance that this process is the process that's been agreed by the Home Office with advice from the College of Policing?
Absolutely. This is a process that's, if you like, historically checking. Under development is a process where this becomes an ongoing checking and testing. So as new information hits the database and it relates to a police officer or police staff in a police force, that police force will be notified.
Thank you. Let's move on to a new area. So the first of the agenda for today, this is around police officer recruitment. The number of police officers and their availability is something that I regularly get asked about by the public and in the media. People may be aware that the Police Uplift programme, which started in 2019, all police forces have received additional funding in order to recruit additional officers. Nationally, the target was 20,000 officers by the 31st of March this year. Each force was given its own target to meet. The local target for Avon and Somerset was a total of 3,291 officers. We're now only 3 weeks away from that target date. Chief Constable, can you please assure me that we're on target, and can you tell me how many officers we have?
Well, I can confirm that as of today, we have 3,316 officers within the organisation. So that does exceed our target already. We did, during the course of the year, successfully apply to the Home Office to fund a further 80 officers on top of our additional target. Actually, we anticipate that at the end of March, we will even exceed that and have 3,385, which is an additional 94 officers on top of our total. So that means we will have recruited since April 2019 over 1,500 new officers into the constabulary in total, 1,000 of them through the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship Scheme and 300 through our degree holder entry programme, largely targeting detectives straight into the organisation. I think that's a tremendous achievement, especially given the challenges at the start with the pandemic.
Yes, I mean it is an excellent achievement, and I suppose I've got two further questions. You said you'd had to recruit over 1,500 officers in order to achieve that level. Can you tell me why we have to recruit so many more than the actual number we need?
Well, every month we will have officers retiring, which is and staff, but officers in this case retiring from the organisation at the end of their service. Officers transfer to other forces, and some officers choose to leave. The reason for this is largely retirements and then backfilling those on top of recruiting the new additional numbers. As I say, over 500 in total. Additional posts on top of our original establishment.
How does this compare to, say, Avon and Somerset Constabulary's numbers in 2010?
Well, we're looking at headcount, so I want to compare the same denominator, if you like. Our police officer headcount in 2010 was 3,185. So that means at the end of March, on 2010 levels, we're going to have a headcount of 200 more officers than 13 years ago. Good, thank you. And can you tell me how those officers, those new officers, will be deployed, what they're going to do within the force? Well, when we've been doing our planning, what we've wanted to do was to reintroduce some of our specialist capabilities and to build up our capacity in some of the areas that were under-resourced during a period of austerity. So our particular focus has been on specialist investigation, on proactivity, on problem solving and on prevention. That we feel hits the priorities within your policing crime plan, but also the beating crime plan from the central government. Most of those officers that we've recruited, they do spend the bulk of their initial 2 years, sometimes 3 years in the response directorate. But actually we've planned an organisational operating model, if you like, for the future, and that will see a strengthened CID. It will see a strengthened proactive crime fighting team, our Operation Remedy, bigger than it has been historically. There's investment in our tactical support team, so that's our firearms capability, in integrated offender management, in violence reductions units, fraud and cyber, and in rural affairs as well. And we have strengthened leadership across the organisation too, so that we can support and properly direct those new officers coming into the organisation. The biggest investment so far has been in Operation Bluestone, Operation Ruby and Operation Topaz. Now they are CID functions looking at sexual offences, child sexual exploitation and child abuse and neglect as well. And we're seeing some positive results from that. We will also see, as the new officers flood in and we're able to build investment in our neighbourhood policing teams, particularly some extra local Operation Remedy focused teams, to make sure that our neighbourhood policing teams have a crime fighting capability as well. We do need to keep this under review as financial pressures, as demands change, as public expectations change, but we hope to keep to the intent that I've just set out there over the course of the next 5 years.
That's very positive, but my postbag doesn't reflect that from the public's concerns, and they haven't yet seen that improvement in services. When do you think, well, first of all, why do you think that is? And secondly, when do you think they will start to see an improvement?
Yeah, I mean, building and in some case rebuilding some of those capabilities does take time. For instance, the PCDA programme is 3 years in duration. So starting from attracting people and recruiting them in 2019 through bringing them into the organisation and then training them, it does have a lead-in time. The direct degree holder entry programme is 2 years, so it's the same challenges. We are just starting now to see our 2019 and 2020 PCDA cohorts graduating. We're just seeing our 2021 direct entry detectives graduating. Over the course of the next 2 years, 14, 16 cohorts additional will come through. So the bulk of those 1,500 officers we've recruited, they're not going to be fully where they need to be until 3 years from now, honestly. We are also seeing not just new people coming in, but a significant shift in the experience levels. 1,500 new officers of a total of just over 3,000. It's about 45% of the workforce. So we do need to rebuild capability as well as capacity. That takes time. Right now, as we sit here, we have the highest numbers ever of officers in training at university. We have the highest number of officers being tutored. And we have the highest numbers ever of being working towards accreditation. That bodes for a really positive future, but I can understand why the public aren't feeling it right now. To give a really practical example, those CID teams that we're investing in, we won't hit our target numbers and accreditation until early 2025, so that gives a sense of the timescales. We're probably at our peak growing pains right now. There will be another smaller peak at the beginning of next year. But from then, I think we'll start to see building and building and strengthening and improved performance for the public as well.
Good. Well, I will continue to hold you account on that, Chief Constable. Let's move on to our second agenda item, which is very topical: women in policing. It's timely discussion as yesterday celebrated International Women's Day. In the force of Avon and Somerset, and in my police and crime plan, one of the areas of focus is a representative workforce. It's really important that the police workforce reflects the communities that it serves. Looking at the latest Avon and Somerset workforce data, it shows a varied picture in terms of proportion of women in different roles. First, from a staff perspective, it's a very healthy 64%. PCSOs 52%, uniformed officers 36%, and specials 26%. Why do you think there are fewer female police officers?
I can speak to this one, Commissioner. I think historically we do have a legacy where the police officer position has traditionally been seen as more male, so we're working uphill. At any point we're getting a greater number of female officers than we ever have had. There's also potentially perceptions of the role and questions women have about joining, such as, will I have a work-life balance? Can I support a family if I become a police officer? There's queries about career progression. Will I be able to get promoted? Will I be able to go into the kind of role I might be interested in going into? That can be a barrier to women coming through. Maybe a bit of mystifying about the process. What actually does that process involve? What training and support will I get? And then thirdly, you've alluded to it already, we know nationally there's been some really high profile, horrendous cases. So we recognise that public confidence, and particularly women's confidence in the police, is at a low right now in terms of perceptions of coming in.
Thank you. I think we'll probably go to the last question, Chief Staff, because of the time.
Okay. Well, we wanted to give you the opportunity, Chief Constable, to give us your best elevator pitch, I suppose, to appeal to women watching this as to why they should consider a career as a police officer.
Okay, here goes then. My best elevator pitch. Well, first, I'd say you get to change the world. By that, I mean policing is the gateway to the criminal justice system, and the criminal justice system in our society sets the norms and the rules in which we live. And that means policing is positioned as a powerful tool for change and improvement. We don't just follow the law, we use discretion. And so we can make small and large influences on how our society operates on a very personal level with individuals, but also more broadly as well. So first, you can change the world. Second, following on from what Louise has just said, I think policing needs women. I think a culture shift of some magnitude is going to be needed to restore public confidence in policing. And we need in policing to change our ways of working, how we behave, how we engage the public. And I think that change requires us to have feminine energy across policing and the policing landscape, as well as the traditional masculine as well. And I know sometimes that doesn't go with gender, but I think we need a balance of those skills and attributes we would naturally call feminine and masculine. Things like compassion, empathy, care, kindness, humility all need to be nurtured and amplified. So if you feel that calling, we need you. Thirdly, I talk about the opportunity that exist in policing for you. So the career options are too numerous and varied to even mention. They're ever increasing. They have during my service. As society, as knowledge, as technology changes, so you can choose to stay in one place, or you can go to many places. You can be an investigator, you can be a firearms officer, you can be a dog handler, you can do counter-terrorism work, you can even be a chief constable. That's just as a police officer. in the police staff space, you can be an accountant, you can be a lawyer, you can be an IT specialist, you can be a data scientist, you can be an educator, you can be an HR professional, you can even be a counsellor. So there are all of those things that are open to you. And finally, my fourth area would say, you get to do good in the world. You have the power to change lives for the better. You can do that every day. You can do that several times a day. And the feeling and satisfaction that that can give you is a feeling that never can be better. So hopefully I've done some good for our recruitment. I don't know, Louise, whether you've got anything to add.
That we are making progress. We've increased by 5% even with the uplift. We haven't slipped on our female proportion. We are making progress, so that 36% you mentioned is 5% better than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And we're absolutely committed to removing barriers, offering opportunities for people to come in and find out about what it means to become a police officer before they join. So we have workshops that we encourage people to come along to too.
So as the elevator pitch has now reached the top of the Empire State Building and you're looking down, in 10 years' time, what would your legacy around female recruitment be?
I think it should be representative at every rank and grade throughout the organisation, and also it doesn't stop just at female representation. So I think female representation, achieving that representativeness needs to be a forerunner for broader representation of all kinds of difference, actually, and diversity of thought and background and experience across the constabulary. So that would be my vision. It's not just about gender, it's about intersectionality as well.
Well, thank you, Chief Constable, and also Acting Deputy Chief of People and Programmes, for answering those questions. They are really relevant to the public, absolutely, I know, because I'm one of them. Our next meeting is going to be on the 12th of April at 1600, and I wish you all well until then. Stay safe.